Hey explorers, I'm coming to you today to show you something. This is the something new that I talk about exploring. In 2020, I decided that I was going to no longer go to the nail shop to do my dip nails. I was going to do them myself. I've watched. I have not been to school. This is the disclaimer. I'm not a professional by license. I've watched over the years do the dip, gone to YouTube videos. So I'm going to play some pictures throughout the video so that you can see it's a work in progress. I've been doing over a year now my nails, right? And today I'm going to walk you through how I do that, because maybe you want to explore at least one time something new, and that something new could be dip powder. So I'm going to show you. I've had so many questions about how do I do them, how do I get them to look so professional. I'm going to just show you my process. I've been purchasing my own colors from various vendors because no one has paid me to do this. I'm not going to say. Maybe that'll come later. But I have this, you know, what you see in the salons, and I have all of my colors on a wheel. And so I'm able to choose. Take off the colors. I have 3 right now. I have a black, a wine, and this gold color. And I'm going to take them off and use 2 new colors. And so stay with me. I'll be right back after I take it off and prep my nails and get ready to show you how I dip. All right, I am back. My nails are prepped and ready for the dip polish. So there are usually different types of dip. I'm not going to promote one over the other, but I want you to know that there are steps to this process. So there's usually a pre-bond, but I have a powder that it's already included a pre-bond. So sometimes there's a first step that you put on each of the nails depending on what product you're using. So I do that depending on the product. Then there's a number 2, which is really like the adhesive. And from the number 2 is an activator that I would say it hardens the actual powder. And from the activator, we have the top coat. So I am going to use 3 different products. The first, what I've already done is try to remember the pattern that I want to use since I'm using multiple colors. So the first one that I've already put on my middle finger is this silk taupe. So I'm going to show you how I generally do it. And if you're in the salon and you get a dip powder, you will notice the first actual step that they put on, or rather some put on a like I said, the pre-bonded. But the first step is usually the adhesive, or, you know, I don't really know what it's called, but it's the base coat. And so I'm going to, instead of going all the way down to the cuticle, I usually apply so that it's not thick around the cuticle, and that's where you will get the lifting if you go and put on multiple coats of the dip. So I usually do about 2 to 3 coats of dip. So I don't go all the way to the cuticle first. I apply a thin, just a very thin coat of the base, about almost a quarter. It's a little over a half to my fingernail, a little over a half. So you apply the base, a very thin coat. Again, I don't go all the way down to the cuticle. I do, and it's really good to make sure that your powder is clear. It's, you know, I shake it up with the lid on, and you dip at an angle. And then you just tap off the excess powder. So one of the things that I usually do to help me is I will take a dark brush for my dark colors, and I usually use a white brush to tap off the excess powder. So you can do it now, or you can dry it, and you're just kind of taking off just the excess powder. You can kind of let it dry for a little bit. I have a different color in my powder. Give me one moment to take that out. I have a trash can right here. Okay, so I've put 1 coat on of the blue. I already have 1 coat on of the taupe. So I'm going to just do another coat and show you how I dip. And another thing is I try to make sure that I run the base across the top as well. And again, I don't go all the way down to the cuticle, just a thin coat and a dip. Tap off the excess powder. Let's move on to the next. And sometimes I don't get just the smoothest dip all the way over, because right now I didn't really look and do well with that, but it's okay because this is just the first one, and I'm going to go back and add 2 more coats. And so I'm going to add a very thin coat, and you try to cover all edges of your fingernail. And I think I'm going to dip this one in the taupe color. Tap off any excess. So now I have 1 coat. I'm trying to decide if I'm going to do, I think I'm going to do my thumb in the blue color. So very thin coat. Again, about halfway or a little over halfway down the fingernail for the first coat. It's not until the second that I will cover the entire nail with the base coat, which is usually step 2 of any system. And so there are so many different types of systems. There are so many different types of powders. There are some that I really like. I really like. And so those are the ones I have a tendency to use a little bit more often. I have about 4 different companies, but there are a couple. So I'll just name, and there's no promotion with this, but S&S, I think they are the original creators of the dip system. So S&S is a really good product. It's usually sold at certain places because the professionals usually buy it. Then there's this double dip. I love the double dip products, but they're kind of small. It's a very small, I think it's 0.5 ounces, whereas some of the others that I have are either I don't know if this is 1 ounce or 2 ounces is generally what I have. But double dip is one. I have a lot of LDS as well. And those are the 3 that I generally use as it pertains to the powder. But there are so many others. Now, you know, this isn't about a review, but I've used the Rossi system. I don't particularly like their powders. I don't like that system too much, and it's only because I find that the powders are very thick. They don't, for me. So some use Rossi. I have that system. I'm really not a fan of it. That's just me. Just me. So I'm going to go through, do the same thing again. I'm not going all the way to the cuticle, and I'm just dipping at an angle, tapping off the excess powder. I'm letting it adhere a little bit before I brush off the excess powder. And I'm using 2 colors today. Sometimes, again, and I'll probably show you how I do the French. And I usually, so there are times when I've created the French with color as well as the white tip. And I'll show you that if you're interested, only if you're interested. Again, it's me exploring new things. And there are things that I really like. Now I am so addicted. This is my therapy. And I thought I would bring it to you because there have been people asking questions about where do you get your nails done. And when I say, oh, I do my own nails, they go, what? You do your own dip? Yep, I do. I do. So I'm just going to tap off. You know, some people brush off the excess powder in the container. I noticed they do that at the nail salon, and that was another reason why I said enough already. I don't. I brush off my excess powder. I don't put it back in the container. I literally brush it off. And you do a light brushing, just a light brushing, just a light. You're not trying to take off the powder. So here is the step that I go all the way to the cuticle with, all the way. And I try to cover the entire nail with the number 2, which is the base coat This is the adhesive that allows the powder to adhere to your fingernail. So this is where I go all the way to the base coat. And it's important to try to keep it off your skin, because again, that means you would adhere the powder to your skin. So sometimes I use tools like this one, and it will get off the excess powder. So I will do a dip, hold for a minute, and tap off all the excess powder. I'm going to re-dip that one more time. And then I'm just tapping off the excess powder. So at this point, I've covered the entire nail. And I'm going to do another dip. So whatever spots, you may be able to notice that there are some spots in here that may not be covered. And it's okay, because I'll clean that up by doing a third coat. And that will allow me to cover all. If I have any excess powder around my cuticle, because you don't want it on the cuticle. You don't want the powder on the cuticle, or around any parts of my skin, I generally take this little wooden stick, I forgot the name of it, Amazon purchase, and just kind of go around the cuticles to get any excess powder. And then when I think it's dried enough, I will go and just kind of brush it off, brush the excess powder, because you don't want it too thick. So brushing it off also allows you to take off all of the excess so that it doesn't become very thick, because that's what you don't want. You want it to be thin and smooth. And there are ways, sometimes when I put the powder on, just so you know, it's not always smooth, right? Sometimes it looks a little thicker, or it may be a little lumpy. And I know exactly how to smoothen it out, right? And again, I'm just dipping all of them. I will not continue to show you this entire product of what I do, but if you notice, this is how it looks after the second dip. Here's like one of my first dips, and it's okay if it didn't look the best. Second time around is where I go all the way down and coat the first, where I coat the entire nail on the second coat. So I'm literally covering the entire nail all the way down. And you want to kind of do this quickly because it dries, right? So you want to cover the entire nail on the second dip. And again, we're building up so we don't have a lot of powder around the cuticle. And if there's any excess powder, again, because I don't want this on my cuticle to start to lift. So I just take my little wooden stick again, and this is what I do. Okay, so we are back. I have actually completed 3 different coats on my nails of the silk taupe in the dark blue. And so after completing the 3, which you use the bond, the second step, and usually you will see the numbers. One of the things I didn't mention that I generally do in the prepping process, and so if you wanted to see how I prep my nails for the powder, that's another video. I didn't want it to be too long, is that usually I'll push my cuticles back if needed with an instrument that kind of looks like this. Push the cuticles back, and that will help me to make sure that I don't get the bonding step 2 on the cuticle. So after you've completed all of the, if you're going to use a 2 or if you're going to use 3, I know it looks like, oh, this is a little weird. So remember, the activator is what dries together the actual powder. And so I'm going to put activator, and I put a little bit. This is just the first bit of the activator, and you just coat the nail with 1 stroke of the activator, and you're just making sure that you kind of seal the actual dip powder together. That's what the activator does. And I'm sure there's better language around how to describe this to you. Again, I'm not a professional. I'm not indeed saying this is what you should do. I'm just going through the process of what I do and how I've started to explore doing things that I generally would pay a lot of money for. So where someone probably is like, oh, so you're doing this, but how are you saving money when you had to buy the products? But yes, I had to buy the products, but now I have them. So I think I did the math, and I'm going to save the very first year doing my own nails. I am going to save about 600 and I think it was like $30 the first year. And moving forward, I will save the entire. I think I almost spent like 1,400 a year. 14, I think 14, and I'll do the math and let you know. So, and this is where I would now take a file and shape my nails. Give it, I shaped it beforehand, but after you apply the dip, you will notice that sometimes you want to do a reshaping. You don't have to. It's only if you want to. So I usually take the file and just kind of reshape to kind of make sure that the dip is not over the nail and that I haven't lost the shape of the nail with the dip powder. So I will go in and do a little shaping to my nails again. And I did this during the prepping, but I generally go back and do it again, right? So, and it's not anything that takes a lot. I just kind of make sure that there's no bonding that got around the nail. Around, and you do the shaping, and you can just kind of see what it looks like. And again, I don't have the top coat on. I haven't smoothened out anything yet. I've just shaped around, and that's just kind of what I do after I put point. There are several things you can do. You can use a file like this. This is 180 grit. I also have the 150 grit. You can actually use this file to either one of these files, or you can use a hand-held purchased from Amazon. So this is a handheld, not expensive at all. It has a reverse, a off, and a front, and a speed. You can adjust the speed on it. I'm not advocating for, there are so many different brands, not advocating for this brand that I have. I'm just showing you that sometimes when I'm in a hurry, I simply use a hand drill. And then there are times when I don't need the hand drill. I can just use a file to smoothen out my nails. And I'll show you what I do. Sometimes I generally will just go around the cuticle, maybe once or twice, just to make sure that it's smooth around the cuticle area. Because when you get the lifting, I'll go up and down one time. And don't laugh at me about the faces I generally make when I'm doing this. And again, around the cuticle, just smoothing out the cuticle area just a little bit so you don't get that lifting. Because what you don't want is the lifting and water gets up under your nails. Generally, that's how you get the fungus, right? And then leaving these on for a very long time, I wouldn't suggest. I try to do my nails like usually every 2 weeks, or sometimes I tell you I want to change the color, so it may be 7-8 days. So I am not going to walk through this whole step. I just wanted you to kind of see what I do with this particular step in my drill. And I tell you, I can show you, I can do the same thing without, you know, without the drill, right? I can use the same thing with a file and it will do exactly the same thing. So it's not necessarily that I have to use the drill. There are times when I do not. So I don't want that to scare people when you start to think you gotta have a drill. I'm not comfortable with using that. Don't use it. If you want to try and explore this step, or you know, I would even suggest buying one color, but you can get kits that, you know, start off at $25-$30 and it will have the whole system. with colors already in it. You can, Amazon has kits, and there are different vendors who have kits, and you can have the starter kit, you know, and it's the same. The using the hand file is the same. I just find that it takes a little longer, and sometimes I'm just a little impatient, but I can use the nail file to do the exact thing, which will be to go around the cuticle to make sure that's smooth. So I'm going around the cuticle area and just smoothing out the polish. So you, again, I do not have to use the drill. I could use a file, 180 grit or the 150. I tend to lean away from, usually say you lean toward, right? Okay, so I lean toward, or I use the 180 when it's on the, because I think the 150 is a little bit too rough, right? And so I think the 150, if you're using the dip system, maybe with a nail, an added extension, what do they call those things? Nail tips? Is that what you call it? Like the nail tip. If you have a nail tip, you can use, I would suggest then maybe using the 150. But on your natural nails, it's really not necessary. So I'm going to do the same thing I just did on this hand. After, let me just complete, how about I just complete this hand? So generally I will finish that up, go in a little bit and just smooth it out with my buffer. So after I feel like, oh, I've actually smoothened out the nail as much as I want it, I do one or two things. I will take a brush and brush off the excess powder. I'm going to show you real quick. I'll take a brush out the excess powder. Go with the 3, which is the activator again. Put the activator on top, because remember I've brushed a lot of the powder off to smoothen it out. So just one thin layer of the activator, just a thin layer of the activator, so it can harden back, because the activator, what it does is it hardens the powder, right? It set, you know, it's like sets the powder. So this is how it looks with no top coats, right? Let this dry for a little bit. After I feel like that it's dried, I go and I take, I don't go anywhere. I hate that language. What is it? Like you hear people say it, so you start saying it crazy, right? I don't ever say I go. But I use it's a 100 over 180, or sometimes I will use the 220 over 280, and I simply just use this. It's kind of a little rough, but it's like a buffer. So I'm smoothing and buffing my nails. That's it. And I go through, and some people don't even do this step. This is me. That just might be extra, right? I don't like the matte finish. That's just me. So I brush it off, and I am going to go and do the exact same thing that I did to this nail hand, to the other nail hand, and I'll come back and I will put on the top coat, and we're done. We're done. I'm back after filing down my nails, shaping them up the way I wanted them shaped, and this is without the top coat. And if you're interested in any other colors or any other things that I do, like the French tip, how to do that, I will come back. And if you have any questions, just leave your comments, like, share, and subscribe. And this is me exploring a new thing. And 2020 allowed me to do exploration of a lot. And my nails was one of them. And what I can say to you is, let's see how it's going to turn out. So the very last thing I do is I purchase these. You don't have to buy these little cloth thingies I get from Amazon. Again, Amazon. You can also tear off a piece of paper towel. And all I generally do is wipe off my nails after I complete all the file. And sometimes I get up and wash my hands. And I'm trying to also let the third application, which is the activator, dry, because this is important to kind of give it some time to dry, so that once you put your top coat on it, it doesn't destroy your brush. So I'm just kind of wiping off so that when I put the shine, which the top coat gives it a shine, there's nothing under the nail like lint, and lint is flying right now. So what I do is take the top coat and apply one thin layer the first time, because I generally apply 2 coats and it's a quick dry. So I'm going to show you what I do, because this step is so aggravating. I have gone through so many number 4s because I don't allow the activator to fully dry, or I have not wiped off my brush. So what I do is a light stroke, just a light stroke the very first time across my nails, and I can always go back. And if I have enough polish, I'll try to get 2 nails in before I dip back in the powder. Excuse me guys, until I dip back in, before I dip back into the actual solution. So what I do at this point is try to wipe off any excess, wipe off the brush. Why do I do this? Because if I don't, sometimes your brush will clump, because the activator will get on the activator from your nails will literally get on the brush. So I brush the brush off before dipping back into the container. Again, another light. We're gonna go back and do 2, but this one is just a light first. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect the first time around. I try to get 2 nails in off of before I dip back in the bottle. So this is the top coat, and let's see if I can do a third, and I can. Hey, before I dip back. So I'm trying not to waste product, right? Because I generally wipe it off. So I'll do a wipe off and go back into the bottle. And this is just the first coat. And we'll see how it looks after I finish. This is just the first coat. Ooh, 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 guys. Ooh, ooh. I said ooh, 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 ooh. So, okay, so let's do it. As you can see, I really like it. So let's real quickly do this. And as we're doing this, let me say this to you. Again, it's all about what works best for you. This is exploration. And I always say, let's try to explore new things and new ways of relating to others, as well as new places. And so exploration for me is not just about traveling. It's not just about conversation, but it's how do I create agency within myself to do some things that I can do that do not rely on others. I hope that for those of you who've thought about this, that this video will help you just dive into it. Try one time. Shoot. It doesn't hurt to try, right? Hey, guys, I hope you like it. I'm going to put some pictures of some of the other things that I've done, but this is the complete look. This is the complete look. I used a navy blue and like a gray. It's called silk taupe, but it's like a gray. And so tell me your thoughts. Leave your comments. Tell me if you like it. I seem to like it. I'm ready. Okay, so be blessed. Be safe. Mwah.